Good evening. Today we're going to talk about a country which has a very unique history and tradition and has unique identity. We're going to focus a unique country called Finland, which lies in the northern part of Europe. How unique is this country? Let me explain to you. Its country has surrounded by 70% of its forest and has set one of the most ambitious climate change target. By 2035, the country expects to have a net zero carbon emission. That's a huge target and very ambitious target. So the Finnish people take environment very seriously, and this is how they're known for historically. So much so that the country is surrounded by the forest. How different are they from the rest of the Europe? The teak forest as a symbol of darkness and gloom. The people from the Finland, the teak forest as a way to live life and a companion and take rest in their. It's a way of life for them, basically. To talk about various perspectives of Finland, and also we focus on Finland in the recent conflict, which you see on your television, which is about the Russia and Ukraine conflict. We also talk about Finland relation with India and how these countries are cooperating in the trade and commerce and investment and science and technology. To talk about, we have the ambassador of Finland, Madam Ambassador Ritva Koukku-Ronde. Welcome, Ambassador. And to begin with, how Finnish identify with the forest and green and sustainability, it comes naturally the part of your identity and culture, and how different when you say it's from the Europe.
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for this interview. Great pleasure to share some of my thoughts. Great honor also to share my thoughts, and thank you for the interest to my country. Of course, Finland is a member of the European Union, so we are one of the country's wealthiest wealthy country, who has not been always wealthy, by the way. Quite rightly you put on that we have on our landscape, we have quite a lot of forests. We have more than 100,000 lakes also in Finland, a lot of water there. And not that many sparsely populated areas as well, which means that we need to be innovative. We need to survive, and we need to, as a small country, we need to be a couple of steps ahead of everything. And therefore, we are very proud that actually we are having the most ambitious targets, climate targets of the industrialized countries, and 2035, like you rightly mentioned, we would be carbon neutral. We will be also coal neutral already by 2029, despite this energy crisis at the moment. But that will hold. This is a combination of very hard work. It doesn't come, of course, we have naturally this kind of sustainable way of thinking, but it has gone during the decades of industrialization, etc. And we have sort of reinvented ourselves what is our tradition, but at the same time really put a lot of emphasis in R&D, a lot of emphasis on education, a lot of emphasis on the innovative way of looking, for instance, energy consumption or sustainable forest management, or how do we treat our natural resources in general. So it is really a combination of very much about the government policy, persistent policy in this field, legislative measures, some incentives, but also corporations who have been very willing to do and change their business model to a very sustainable way of working, producing, thinking. And that is the combination of all that. But I wouldn't really emphasize the kind of uniqueness of Finland as such, because we are really we are very export dependent country on our GDP. So therefore, again, we have to have products or services what are wanted around the world. And we are of course interlinked globally to the global value change, and we are part of the global community. We like to be very active in multilateral forums. We like to be very active in when we are discussing about global security issues, or when we are discussing about market opportunities, for instance, promoting very strongly free trade and investment agreements, for instance, regular based international order, etc. So therefore, I think it's really a result of, I would say, hard work, because we haven't been so lucky to be born in a sunny and warm and sort of maybe more generous environment. It is like you put it's up in the north. We have long winters, short summers, and that is maybe the reason also that we have very much invested in this way that we try to be surviving here.
So, Ambassador, thank you for explaining the basic structure of your society and the policies. But before we talk about the complexity of geopolitics and geoeconomics, I think we should focus more on the fundamental issues. Again, I want to come back to the climate aspect, which you take this issue from your heart. You deal with it day and night. I just said you're surrounded by the forest. 70% forest you manage. You're also part of some of the biggest global institution in the area, say Arctic Council, and which is an indicator of how the global environment, the climate is changing with ice melting. You closely watch day and night. But having said that, there's always a conflict with the development, the economy, there's a growth, and how much that debate goes in your country and preserving environment. For example, in your country, you're dependent on the forest for your pulp and paper. That affects employment, economy of your country. And there's a debate of having a net zero by 2035. Where do you merge your, where do you reach on conclusion? How do you find a unanimous verdict on that among this conflict of climate change and development?
First of all, maybe about the forest in philosophy. We are not afraid of forests. We see forest as, I would put it in Indian way, that it is for our being in the forest or close to the forest is like Ayurveda or yoga in India. So it has a refreshment element, and it has an element on calming down when you are in nature. That is one thing. The other one is that, of course, we see in the forest opportunities, and we have always seen. It's not that much anymore Finnish paper industry that it is in Finland, actually. It's all over the world. What we Finnish paper industry, forest industry is very much doing at the moment is developing new materials, bio-based materials, for instance, which can be replacing plastic. So very innovative way, or textiles, which is used, for instance, on raw materials, which is normally wasted, for instance, in cotton production. So there are innovative ways of looking at that. So we see the opportunities more than really on sticking on the old way of doing, and that goes everywhere. Actually, it's not anymore the question that what is the most profitable ones, because very many companies are now looking at actually sustainability. When I have been meeting CEOs or chairpersons of very big Indian conglomerates or companies in general, one of the issues which combines them all is how do we do it in a more sustainable way? And the sustainability integrated in the whole business system. So whether it is production, but whether it is a mind of thinking also. And there we have been looking, when it is concrete, for instance, let's put it, for instance, building. We are looking, how do you do this in a more sustainable way? And then you are going all these elements. We have now our government and some of the institutions and corporates are helped by the roadmaps which have been planned, sort of carbon-free roadmaps in 40 sectors. So and we are more than happy to share that kind of information
so
also.
Incentive to industry to mitigate the gaps and the losses.
Well, I mean, it is the industry is seeing this as a profitable future on gearing their production or whatever they are doing, their platforms or what in more sustainable manner, and they are starting to count their carbon footprint, etc., etc. This is business in the future. That you are doing it in a more energy efficient way, you are doing with new materials, you are looking in a comprehensive manner what kind of carbon footprint you have. And there we are. We are simply very good on this. It's not for nothing that Finland has been really top 5 in very many years on sustainability when it is counted. And now the last measure index was that we are the number 1 in the world. So this will be integrated, and our companies, for instance, who are working in India, actually they are Make in India companies, so they are also providing this kind of sustainable way of doing all kind of whether it is energy consumption or whether it is, for instance, intelligent energy meters, or whether it is charging stations for electric vehicles, or whether it is the whole automatization process of power plants, for instance. So a company like Wärtsilä is producing engines which can use all kind of forms of energy, so also waste energy, and that we are doing in Finland, that we are using most of the waste then which is usable in creating energy. Of course, recycling also, but I mean this kind of thing, comprehensive way of looking on the issues. So that brings the companies. Very many companies are globally now working. So globally, we are looking much more sustainable ways, and that is a good path.
Of course, Ambassador, and it's evident from your target, which you have set, it is very ambitious, and of course, even your partners and allies in Europe, they have target beyond that. I mean, 2035 is a way too tough and to achieve that. Having said that, I have a question to you again regarding. So you are the key member of Arctic Council. Also, you are the part of the decision-making body of Antarctica. These are the two, again, I said, the key places which we measure our environmental challenges and the way it's turning into. Due to the CO2 emissions and all that. And recently it's also found, because it's such a vast area and unexplored oceans, and there are fuels and there are minerals found there. And then again comes to the same question, the conflict. Will you go and explore, because it's part of your immediate territory, you have been the key member there, it's area is near to you, the vast area to explore. But that's again in the conflict with your target, with your standards, with your values, what you're talking about. So how will you go about exploring the minerals and fuels which you find in Arctic? What is your position on that? How the world looks at Finland?
When it comes to Arctic or Antarctic area, unfortunately, those are the most vulnerable areas on our global planet, where you can see also the immediate consequences of climate change, and it doesn't look very good. We are luckily, India and Finland, we have been doing years cooperation. Our meteorological institutes, for instance, have been doing observations and cooperation measuring the impact of global climate change. So there has been Antarctic. I think we are India and Finland. We will have more opportunities for cooperation because we happen to be chairing the treaty follow-up, so that Finland is before India and India is after Finland, and it tends to be that the chairs are always closely cooperating. And actually, thanks to India, we switched the chairmanships. In our position, Antarctic is so vulnerable that we would, according to the treaty, we should really concentrate only on research and save the area from any kind of commercial activities. We can see already impact of.
So you will not allow your country and others to come and explore. I mean, of course, because that's a fragile territory.
I am yes. I think we should follow the treaty what we have agreed upon, and follow and concentrate on research and activities on that, and keep the place as unharmed as possible. In the Arctic Council, indeed, we are member of Arctic Council, eight members, several observation status participants there as well. So there is the climate change and environmental issues has been always very strong on agenda. And that is going on, of course, that discussion, that the emphasis is there as well to preserve the unique environment and have that on main focus. When it comes then actually to, I think I would like to mention also the third pole here, because that is, of course, Himalayas. And India has invaluable information, of course, also on melting on glaciers and the impact of climate change in such a vulnerable area like Himalayas are also. So one of the issues, for instance, which we have been looking very strongly is so-called black carbon issue, which is the consequence when the ice is melting, the photoreflection back to the air is not happening, and then the impact of the sun is much more stronger. So we see the melting of glaciers and melting of ice really very too speedy process actually in that sense. So I would leave that here, that our and then of course in Arctic area there is another very important issue, and that is the livelihood of indigenous people. And some of these indigenous people are really very much focusing on for instance,
like the Sami people.
Yes, Sami people, reindeer, cattle, etc. So we really have to respect on those livelihoods and their way of living and their traditions in that sense. So that is but very vulnerable areas you are talking about, and there we have possibilities also to increase our cooperation.
No, thank you, Basil. You well highlighted the importance of some of the most fundamental challenges which we have at the moment. But back to our relation with India, which is, I think, and I understand again, Finland has been one of the first country to open embassies in India way back, recognizing Indian independence. So we share really close relationship, and of course our relation goes beyond the political and vastly the culture dimension also. How do you see India-Finland relation now in terms of political and economic opportunity that we have together? Could you give an overview?
Well, our relations are excellent, and indeed, like you said, we opened actually our first resident embassy after the Second World War, first in India, and the ambassador who was here in 1949, then after a couple of years he went to China to open an embassy there, but India was first. We have excellent relations. Our prime ministers met last time in May and had Nordic meetings, but also bilateral meetings. And they had a very good discussion about a year ago, then in March 2021, where they agreed actually on three dimensions and focus on our of course political and that, but there are three other areas where we are really now concentrating. And one is digital partnership, second sustainability partnership, and third cooperation in the field of science, technology and education. And of course these are not covering all the things what we are doing, but this is concentration, and here we have also an action plan. How do we proceed? And there are several parts, of course, but of course sustainability is very much about renewable energy, green, clean technologies, energy efficiencies, etc., water management and water treatment in that sense, but clean water in a sense. I wish there were also really more in the field of sustainable forest management. But let's see what happens there as well. Here is also sustainable packaging industry, sustainable materials. I mentioned already bio-based materials, for instance, in textiles or in packaging. Huge opportunities. Smart way of building cities, constructions, etc. Is in this field. In digitalization, of course, there are research fields like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, etc. But also 5G, 6G, where also Indian companies have been very active in Finland.
Ambassador, on the 5G is very interesting. As you understand, your Finnish company Nokia is household name in India. In fact, it is remarkable that a smaller country with the size like Finland led the revolution in telecommunication, coming as far as India and the other side of the world, and it also contributed a lot of economic growth and a small factor, the mobile. So you led on telecommunication, and now is a field of quantum communication. You have 5G. Where are the Finnish company in terms of investment? Where do we see the Finnish company investing in India in this field? As far as I understand, our trade remains at $2.5 billion, with export and import average less than $1 billion. Do you see the potential there's a gap in addressing that potential?
I have, first of all, I think we haven't used that all the potential what we have between India and European Union trade and investment. And when it comes to individual bilateral countries like Finland, of course, statistics are not showing everything, because take a Nokia company, which you mentioned, which are now in 5G, building 5G, 6G at the moment, working with, cooperating with all Airtel companies in telecom companies in India. Who were just having this 5G auction, for instance. Nokia is in Chennai. They have more than 7,000 people there in these 5G radio equipments, etc. They have in Bangalore 7,000 people in the biggest R&D center in the world. The second biggest is in Oulu in Finland. And they are in Noida as well. So they have a network here. They have invested millions. Tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions. I think the turnout is, I don't know even what it is at the moment, but let's say it must be something much over 1.5 billion per year. And out of that, very much, most of these some of them are staying here, and some India is exporting out. It doesn't show in the trade figures, because they are making India companies, all of these. So another really innovative company is Kone Corporation, global company, which is invested in Chennai. Just a few years ago, they opened a new site there. And they are really having escalators, elevators, security doors, but services as well. Very innovative solutions also. This site which they opened in Chennai is one of the biggest site in the world as well. Take Wärtsilä or Valmet company in energy. They have already designed 70% of automatization of Indian energy plants. And they continue to be strong. Wärtsilä, who has been designer of the diesel motors in the Navy here in India. Or Huhtamäki company, it's a packaging industry who is all over in India, you don't even see. Or some company called, for instance, Tieto, which is very closely cooperating with some of the system integrators in India. Or take some companies, Indian companies who are in Finland, for instance, take Mahindra or Mahindra Holiday Club or one firm called Sampo Rosenlew, which they bought 100% for agricultural machinery, forest machinery, for instance, or Wipro or Infosys. I think some of our taxation systems or banking systems wouldn't work without Indian cooperation. But there are many more to come, and many more companies.
Especially in the area of waste to energy, and
Waste to energy for
like Finland has
exactly.
some of the.
Exactly.
I've been there, so I understand one company which I can't recall has a very unique technology of converting the waste into the energy, and they were planning to invest in India. There are like many such expertise the Finnish company have with the new, very breakthrough technology.
Yes. Yes.
How do Finnish company can collaborate, and how Finland can contribute in this direction?
Well, very often it is. Very often they are really closely cooperating with Indian companies, and some of the, let's say, for instance, Reliance Jio is working very closely with Nokia, or you take, like I said, these teleoperators. But then there are joint ventures also. For instance, Fortum is doing with the joint venture in Assam, just building biorefinery. So this kind of cooperation there are. And there has been also decades already. So these companies are not new companies in a sense, but there are, with their success, of course, also smaller and medium-sized companies are coming. Take one company called Biopass, for instance, with an intelligent energy meters. So they have hopefully a bright future ahead with their partners, or some machinery company called Chempower, who is now more and more getting to the charging. They used to have very technical things, but they have been converted to the charging stations. So incredible success stories in that sense on some of the niche areas, not necessarily whole value chains, but some of the niche areas in the value chain as well. And I think there would be many more opportunities, not only in the field of renewable energy, but probably with this biogas, bioenergy as well, but also smart energy when it comes to all kinds of solutions. I mentioned to a company called Valmet, for instance, or Wärtsilä, who are also designing some of these technical important parts of these power plants, for instance. And that is an important cooperation also, because of course their clients are Indian companies.
But these potential could be magnified if we have some free trade agreement sort of with India. And I understand, of course, since Finland made a part of the European Union, you would be bound by the EU FTA contract, and which will anyway is about to unfold a huge potential. And what is the Finland position on FTA? What are the bottlenecks? Why it's stuck for a long time, and how you see the Finland making contribution? Is a good friend of India. Facilitating the FTA with India, which will unfold a greater trade.
Like you said, I said earlier that we are a very export-oriented country, and our export is very big part of our GDP. We have been always on rule-based international order, and that goes also with the trade and investment protection regime. So we are very strongly in favor of free trade, and we are very strongly about free trade agreement, because that gives a framework, and that gives the security. We are also, of course, very much in favor of having this investment agreement also with India, EU-India. And of course, we try to be as constructive partner within the EU. We are in the group of countries who strongly believe on this kind of free trade and investment agreements. And like you rightly pointed out, actually, there are enormous potential to have more trade with investments and trade when we have also agreement. It will give companies more trust and security in their doings, because after all, actually, companies are very interested that they have safe environment. Of course, they trust. There are many companies in India, but there could be much more. They like to have easiness of doing business, and easiness of doing business, there is one element which is very important, and that is predictability. And when you have this kind of rules and regulations agreed between both parties, it gives that sort of trust and predictability a little bit more than when you don't have this. Because after all, everybody wants, at the end of the day, some win-win situation and profitable businesses. It's not a charity work, this business, in that sense that there you have these. And the other one is, of course, it is of course the rule of law and the juridiciary, that if there are some disputes, for instance, that there is a great way how to proceed further. And that is rather simple, but of course when it comes to the text and juridical text, it is getting complicated. But European Union is very ready to continue the discussion, and I think the second round will be very soon in October, and we are looking forward on having good discussions and looking really and welcoming, of course, India's position also.
Indian ambassador, I hope so, and of course, as you highlighted, Finland also had the same intention. We drift little geopolitics, and it is very important. Your position in Europe itself is so strategic. You being a northern side of the Europe, you share border with Russia, Sweden, the Nordic country, and also largely you're part of Scandinavia, which you don't define. Having said that, the recent conflict has affected you. I'm talking about the Russia and Ukraine conflict, which has led Finland, which has so far been a neutral country in terms of military neutrality, not to intervene in any offensive war. Now you're gearing up towards being a NATO member. That means giving up your neutrality, your position, which has been so far a unique identity of Finnish people, the Finland, the peace-loving people so far, who love forest. How big is the change, and do you think, because you also have been maintaining, since Russia becomes your long historic partner, because you share a geographical border, you have been maintaining the delicate balance with Russia for long. Are you trying to move away from everything and define a new path? How do you look at Finland joining NATO?
Well, quite rightly, you pointed out that we have very long border with Russia. We have always had very long border with Russia, and that gives some possibilities, but also some challenges. And possibilities and work in the sense is that when you are having neighbor, you always have to discuss about practicalities and practical cooperation, border traffic and sort of cross-border problems like environment, etc. They have always been one part of this work. But at this moment, actually, when situation changed very dramatically, 24th of February this year, when Russia aggressively tried to invade Ukraine and started a military war in Ukraine, an independent sovereign state. So that is something which my country and very many other countries in the world didn't accept. That was a brutal violation of international law, European rules and regulations, and very much what we have agreed upon with Russia as well. So we had to adjust our situation. Of course, every country's interest is security and welfare. Right. So we were analyzing our security situation. People were discussing about that, and we came to the conclusion that to enhance our security in this changed environment, we are applying NATO membership. And that had a very strong, it was a very democratic procedure. It had very strong public support, and our parliament discussed also was very, very strongly in favor. And we have put together we did it together with Sweden. We were both military, non-aligned, although partners with NATO already years. So actually in our situation, for instance, we have always taken care of our national security. So we have in all fields, air, ground, sea, we have kept our capabilities, and we have also developed during the past more than 20 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union, particularly our capabilities in the way that we are interoperable with NATO forces. We have been practicing, we have been doing operations like in former Yugoslavia or in Afghanistan or somewhere else together with NATO forces. So we know what where we applied membership,
So you said time
and
has come to
NATO knows us very well. So what we are thinking now, that together with Sweden we are enhancing actually with our membership, we are enhancing the security in the Baltic Sea region in the north. Now all Nordic countries are NATO members as well, so traditionally we have been practicing also together. We have been practicing with various kind of groups together as well. So we believe that we are not really bringing deficit to the NATO. We are bringing added value to the NATO with our strong army and strong capabilities. And in that sense, it doesn't change very much in a sense that we continue to keep our strong defense in the future as well. So there is, in that sense, no dramatic changes in that field. Of course, we continue to be very active and supporting Ukraine in this war situation where they have forced to defend themselves. They have all the right to defend themselves as well, and we are helping them with the military aid, but also humanitarian. There are thousands of Ukrainians living in Finland. There are Ukrainian children going to school in Finland. We have some wounded who needed in medical assistance, for instance. They are in Finland, etc. So we are assisting in so long as needed. We are assisting Ukraine, and we stand with Ukraine as well. So that is. And we have harsh sanctions which we are ready to bear. Right. So when it comes to energy, we are in a lucky position in the sense that we have been transferring already our energy portfolio earlier in a way that we can switch in other forms of energy like fossil. We have been buying from Russia also international energy markets, and some oil and gas have been coming. We have even refined that, but for instance the biggest refinery in Finland has been already before Russia attacked Ukraine, has already switched more to the biorefinery side, so it's not a big change in that. There are many firms Finnish firms who have suffered a lot and lost millions, billions, some in Russia at the moment, and that is of course a very unfortunate development in a sense that we have been the companies.
No, I understand that you put it very correctly, and also the debate has been going for a long time in Finland itself. But what I want to understand from you again, Finland is often seen as a peace zone and a buffer zone between the Russia and the rest of the Europe. Of course, you share your, as you said, long border and history. You also understand your neighbor well, basically, and could be in the time of the crisis a good mediator, who someone could bring peace. Did you think in that direction that your Finland could contribute and sort of, in mitigating the conflict, bring some sort of resolution in the crisis? Did you want to play some part in it?
We don't believe in this sort of Cold War terminology, actually, of buffer zone or interest zones. I think that is history also. Of course, knowing very clearly that some tend to think in that way as still. Finland has not been neutral for decades. We are a member of the European Union. We have been partnering with NATO militarily. We have been non-aligned, but we haven't been neutral. We share Western values of rule of law, democracy, human rights, equality, market economy. So that is, we have had that very, very long time. We have had very strong cooperation within the Nordic countries. Our trading partners are in Europe, in US, even in China. But we are really sharing that kind of values, like in India, for instance, rule of law, democracy, rule-based international order. And this is something that mediation role in or role on conflict, yes, but we don't call this conflict. This is war which Russia has been aggressively practicing in sovereign state Ukraine. So there is, in that sense, there is not like normally is two parties. There is an aggressor here and one who is trying to defend with the help of us.
So, Ambassador, you made your position very clear. Your country, your Prime Minister, Sanna Marin, also made the position very clear that we will not compromise even on the aspect of energy, and will continue sanction, what you call aggression in your terms. And having said that, you see that there's a looming crisis, an energy crisis, and winter is approaching in Europe. And how would you see resolving this crisis? What are the major, solutions you have in your mind, if you could talk about?
We are very daily and every minute really very active within the European Union to try to find common solutions. And I think we have achieved enormously lot. First of all, we are standing together all the time in vis-a-vis Russia, and we have very strong sanctions which are, when you are looking Russian economic development, it starts to hurt slowly but surely. So there will be impact in this, and we have patience as well. We are very strongly cooperating to diversify our energy portfolios. Of course, there are some countries within the European Union who have been more dependent on Russian oil and fossil fuels. And we are slowly but surely finding here the solutions. And I think the rapid changes, it's not slow, there are rapid changes in few months, which very many companies have been, very many countries have been.
But your dependence is huge in terms of the energy supply from Russia.
We are still, yes.
40-50%, so...
excuse me?
Is it about 40% of the energy which comes from Russia, I understand?
To Europe?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly I must say that I didn't look in the morning the latest figures, but I think what is very important is that if you look the figure, from each country it's going very strongly down now. So the dependence on Russian fossil fuels is getting down day by day, very surely, and having really the curve down. And that shows that we have been successful on looking the alternative ways, and we have been successful to look in a little bit longer way also how we will secure our energy consumption, our energy import also at this time when there are some more sustainable solutions will take time. You know that some countries are still sort of not closing some of the coal plants, or they are just postponing some closing of nuclear power.
But when crisis escalates, will it not lead to deforestation in Finland, because you will cut more woods if you have less energy supply? I mean, are these relevant things to consider?
No, that is. I mean, we don't cut more wood in that sense, because I mean we don't use wood. Maybe sauna. Yes, that is a point. I think people are not using so much many times sauna per week, but we don't use really. Actually, it is the biomass what we use in energy consumption, for instance, it's the waste of forest management, forest industry, for instance. So we don't use in that sense. We use the waste. So that I mean.
Of course, that's
the point.
Good thing to do.
I mean, we are not cutting our trees in a traditional way for putting them to the powerhouses. We are, in our case. In Finnish case, we are just opening our 5th nuclear power plant, which will bring additional 1,600 megawatt energy. So this is an has been a long project with France, with actually Areva, the French nuclear power plant. But it's interesting because we get it now ready just in time, in a sense that we are running that up at the moment. And that will bring, and we are going to very so rapid tempo. We are going to increase.
Is the project going smoothly? Because
yes,
I was aware of some technical problems. The reactors
yes.
being not being tested even in the France, and the project being delayed and cost overrun gone.
Yes.
So, if you can highlight the latest on this.
You are right that that has been taking much longer, many years more than anticipated. But it comes of the fact that there is new technology, but also new technology in the security side. So the whole package is, but now it is slowly but surely it is starting to run. It is on track now that we are getting it in full speed by winter. And then we are increasing the wind energy, and that is onshore energy. It's much cheaper to build onshore than offshore most of the cases. So we have rather much ground in Finland, and especially in areas where is a lot of wind. So we are increasing wind energy.
Ambassador, you made your perspective very clear on these issues, and of course in the aspects slightly drift away. Again, being a NATO member, but then the Prime Minister Sanna Marin recently spoke about having an independent, more stronger capability for the armed forces to defend your country. As you also pointed out, Finland takes these things very seriously. You had bought way back the fighter jets, right after after post 90s we're talking about. So how are you modernizing your armed forces and you increasing your defense budget? What are the ways you increase your capability or add more strength to your defense forces to protect Finland?
Actually, we have very long-term planning for military purchases in Finland, and we are renewing or modernizing it on a constant basis. So we know, and we are looking very strongly the life cycles of whether it's our fighters or whether it is our navy or whatever kind of equipment we need or material we need. So it is always really considered in a very careful process. For instance, we made decision in November to purchase more F-35s from US, and more than 60, and I think 64. And that was a it took really very long process. So we knew it about 10 years ago already that we will have this process and how we will have that process. And that is, of course, that we take the terms of references, we look very carefully what do we need, and then we are having the biddings, and then we are again studying what they are offering, and then starting the negotiations of the best bidders, and then at the end of the process the decision is made in a very comprehensive manner. And the same happens with the Navy and also the land forces, that when they need something, it goes in that sense. So we are renewing constantly, paying something. We are already above 2% what NATO is of our GDP in our defense. So we don't see any additional purchases coming now in what is not planned. So actually.
Your armed forces budget, your defense budget.
Well, it is already high. So we have been, because, like I said, we have been building already decades, and and our defense is the national defense. So we have been taking care that we have capability.
So here, Ambassador Ritva Koukku-Ronde. Thank you so much, Ambassador, and thank you for speaking with Financial Express, and my colleague. Camera person Amarendu. Thank you, Ambassador of Finland, speaking with Financial Express. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much for your attention.